Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. Link is right here in the description. You got to click through. That's the way that you can see all 10 channels that we have on there. We've got more to come. Lots of stuff planned for you. $2.99 per month, but you need to pay that to be able to see everything. We just want to make that clear to everybody. So check out Off the Floor. Also check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes a special sponsor of this episode. It's Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you check them out. Join the 5 million happy players and more than 2 billion won. You think Tyler Herro is going to go over his 23 scoring average this week? You can play it there. Will Bam finally get going? You can play his number as well. I've played Underdog. You get your money quickly. It's an easy experience. They got lots of other stuff on the app too, in addition to the props. So make sure that you check that out. Download the app today and use the code 5 FIVE. Again, you know that code 5 FIVE to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. So check it out. Again, it's the code 5. Here's the deal. You must be at least 18 or 19 in Alabama and Nebraska, and 19 in Colorado for some games, 21 in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Are you concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, that's 1-800-GAMBLER, or visit www.ncpgambling.org. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. The Miami Heat continue on a road trip. We'll next take them to Detroit. They're 1-2 on the trip so far. Puts them a game under 500. Could be worse. Got a win in Minnesota, unexpected, without Jimmy Butler. Nikola Jovic's layup and free throw win it. Miami has a defensive possession after that to close it down. The one thing, though, that has been consistent in all of these games, and we're going to get into him specifically today, we've talked about him on every episode. I think he's been the player of the game 6 times already, and that's with us picking players of the game from other teams on the post-game show, and that's Tyler Herro. And I'm just going to give some numbers here, just to put this into some perspective of how well he's played. There's also going to be disclaimers, just like I did for the Underdog Fantasy ad. I am not saying that Tyler Herro is the player that we're comparing him to here. I just want to give you a little bit of statistical context as we go forward. I put up this tweet today, Alex. I will read it to you. Player A is averaging 23.2 points, 5.2 rebounds, 5.0 assists on 51, 46, 82 shooting splits. Player B is averaging 23.2 points, 7.7 rebounds, 8.9 assists on 51, 44, 82 shooting splits. If I was to tell you that player A is Tyler Herro, who is player B?
You said 8 assists?
Yes. So I'm going to give it to you again. 23.2 points, 7.7 rebounds, 8.9 assists on 51, 44, 82 shooting splits. It's, by the way, virtually identical shooting splits. No.
Or is it Donovan?
Nope. The rebound number is high, Alex. 7.7.
I was trying to think of like somebody that is like related to the Heat in some way. One of these guys that they missed out on.
I'm just trying to put Tyler Herro in the most ridiculous context possible. 7.7 rebounds, 8.9 assists.
Is this LeBron?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Headline. Herro playing at LeBron-like level. Of course, the rebounds and assists are not quite there, but the same points per game, identical shooting percentage. LeBron takes most of his shots from in closer. Identical shooting percentage, identical free throw percentage, Herro is 2 percentage points higher than LeBron from 3. By the way, and of course, LeBron has made great strides there. I am not saying that he's playing at a LeBron level, but I'm just trying to put into some kind of a framework here, like what Tyler Herro is doing to start this season. Mm-hmm. And I think we can acknowledge, Alex, we didn't expect this. We did a bunch of episodes, and I just remember all of us saying he can make marginal improvement if he buys into his role, right? We were talking about him coming off the bench. Well, we knew that wasn't going to happen once they announced kind of that, we're going to build around these 4 guys, right? And then we can talk about whether or not one of those guys is the right guy to build around, which is the point guard right now. But we were debating, again, whether he would accept a role. He has acknowledged that he was in his feelings about playing off the ball. And I know he was in his feelings because his response, the question and answer he was referencing were a question and answer between me and him last year, where I asked, he's like, well, I'm just an off the ball player or something along those lines. He was not happy about it. And he's acknowledged that. He's past that. But it's more than just acknowledging it. He's doing it. And Brady pulled up the shot chart today, and there's almost nothing in the mid-range. Like, he talked about this before the season. He said threes and layups or dunks, okay? And obviously with him, it's more layups than dunks. But he said that's what we're looking for. He made a pull-up from the free throw line, like that little push shot yesterday, and we were like, oh, he actually took that. Like, you wanted him to take it there. He has conditioned himself to such a degree to avoid those kind of shots. I cannot remember a player changing his game this much in one offseason. I've been doing this for 30 years covering this team. I can remember players improving, but I can't remember a player changing the dynamic of his game this much. Have you seen anybody in your time, especially covering the team the past few years?
Not necessarily on the Heat, but like the name that quickly comes to mind that's become like we talked about it a lot in reference to Bam was Brook Lopez, right? Where like he was, he made his name and his career as like a low post player, this offensive powerhouse, was a walking like 20 and 8 or something when he was with the New Jersey Nets, and then just became, a 3-and-D big kind of overnight that one year that he was with the Lakers before he ended up doing with the Bucks. So that's like the one example that quickly comes to mind. But no, 100%. You got to give the credit to Tyler for the way that he has kind of reshaped his game. And I don't think any of it is like there's this crazy individual improvement at any specific skill. But like, again, not to toot our own horns here, I think this is the exact stuff that we were talking about, that you wanted to see from him. It's like you want him to trade in those middies for more threes because he's such a good shooter. That's exactly what he's done. Like you mentioned, he's taking way less, and I was just looking at the numbers. He's more than cut in half the mid-range attempts per 75. And a lot of those like quote unquote mid-range attempts are like the ones you mentioned where it's kind of short mid-range. There's not very many long mid-range shots I can remember him taking this year. And shout out to my guy, Frankie G from Miami Heat. He pointed this out earlier today that he's having a career high true shooting percentage. And it's by over 10 percentage points. Right. And some of that is going to come down because he's shooting at the moment 45% from 3. That's going to be kind of hard to keep up, but he's doing it at an insane volume. He's getting to the free throw line a little bit more. And I don't think it's because, he's like so much stronger or he's playing like contact basketball at the rim. It's just that it's making things easier for himself when he's leveraging the 3-point shooting. And that's the stuff that we've been talking about forever. He's doing it all in similar usage, right? It's not like he has taken this role where, he's taking a back seat to everybody. He's the main like offensive hub right now. And when I mean hub, I just mean like he's the guy that everything is gonna go through and go back to, at least in this moment, right? Especially with Jimmy out. But even when Jimmy was out there, like Tyler's just been the guy for them game after game after game. And it's one thing for like to reshape your game, right? And give him all the credit for that. It's doing a lot for him, but he's been consistent. Like he's not playing perfect, but he's playing very well in just about every game. You're not having these roller coaster games where like, he's giving you, an okay game and then a great game and then a bad game. Like, and I think this is all the stuff that we've been talking about in the past where it's like you're polishing your game. You're polishing the parts of your game that you're already good at and just trying to get to that optimal shot profile. That's exactly what he's done, man. It's paying off. He's also having a career year when you talk about assist percentage. right? And again, this is with a role where he's not dominating the ball, but he's still getting all the usage. He's just getting up a shot profile and a game that just makes a lot more sense for him, where he doesn't have to do too much. And I think he's just struck a really nice balance here.
What if I was to tell you his usage is down? According to Basketball Reference, this is not perfect. Every site does it a little bit differently. But according to Basketball Reference, last year his usage percentage was 27.8, which was first on the Heat. Bam was second at 24.9, and then Butler at 24.0, and then Terry, since he came over, was at 23.8. This year it's down to 27.1.
Yeah. The website I used, it wasn't the same numbers, but it was a similar gap. It's a similar thing. Usage, though.
Yeah, exactly. Which means that they're not, this idea that they're forcing the offense around him is not true. He's just changed the trajectory of what he does offensively. It's not that they're forcing the ball to him more, because this year usage is 27.1 is Tyler, and next among regulars was Jimmy at 22.8, Bam at 22.6, Rozier's at 19.9. Actually, Duncan's at 22.1. But again, small sample size. But the point is overall that they're not, again, if this is not give the ball to Tyler and get out of the way, that's not what this has been. It's been him playing to the right spots, to the right role consistently. And that's why I say I can't remember. I can remember improvement. There are a lot of players who've made improvements. Look, we can talk about all of their undrafteds. I mean, they really have from year one to year two. Dwayne from year one to year two, when they moved him to his natural position, to the two-guard position, you remember what he did in 04-05. That was the breakout, okay? So there have been, I mean, plenty of Heat players we can point to where there's been improvement. But I can't remember a guy like altering his game to make it work like this. And that was the big question about Tyler. Like, did he care enough about winning to put his ego aside to do this? And not only has he done it, he's done it better than anybody else on the roster. And on the other side of this, I think what we need to talk about, like, does this change how he's viewed in terms of his future with this team? Because I don't think we believed, and I don't know that the Heat believed, that he would adjust to this role so well. And now you can begin to add things to his plate. Okay, he can put the mid-range game back in there a little bit more consistently, because now teams are going to start overplaying the three. And like you mentioned, I don't think it's just, I think I agree with you. I think some of it is angles, leverage, and that he's getting to the line more often. Some of it is he's put on a little weight, but I think some of it is he's starting to get respect. And that will change things. And we didn't think that was going to happen either, because we were always like, he's too slight. He doesn't go to the basket enough. He doesn't finish well enough. Their referees are never going to respect him. I mean, what if he's basically close to it? You know, he's 82% this year, but he's been consistently 85 or above from the free throw line. If he can get to 6-7 attempts a game consistently, I mean, what's he at this year? He's at, let's see, his number this year is, he is at 3.7. Okay. Jimmy's at 7. Bam's at 5.1. I mean, can Tyler get to 5 or 6 free throw attempts per game? We didn't think that was possible again. But I do think if he's going to become a primary scorer where the officials respect him, they take all this stuff into consideration. I know they say they don't. Then you could be adding another point or two to the total here. So on the other side of this, we're going to get into this in the context of Jimmy coming back, but then also kind of the future and what this means. Before we do, I want to mention another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, Eric Rubenstein. You can find him at ericrubenstein.com. We don't want you to have a car accident, obviously. But if you do, reach out to Eric immediately. He's at 877-829-ERIC. And that's 877-829-ERIC or 877-829-3742. Went to St. Thomas University, graduated magna cum laude, grew up in Lauderhill. He's a South Florida guy, Dade and Broward. He can help you in either county. Reach out to him right now. You also find him at the Heat games and pretty much anywhere else. The guy has one of the cooler lives I've seen here. And why? Because he's good at his job and he gets you your money. So check it out, 877-829-3742 or ericrubenstein.com. All right, let's get to the immediate. We're sort of doing present. Now let's do like immediate future and then long-term future. So immediate future is Jimmy Butler's going to come back at some point. Terry Rozier did not distinguish himself last night. I mean, he made a great screen on the Jovic layup, right? So let's give Terry credit for being in the game at that point and doing that. But it still just doesn't look quite right. I mean, I kind of thought we'd see Tyler and Terry kind of in, I don't know, closer to equal type roles, but Tyler has blown by Terry in terms of efficiency and everything else. What does that mean when Jimmy comes back?
I mean, honestly, I think things kind of go back to where they were when he was here. I think it's still going to be a lot of questions about how to get Terry going again. Because, like I've said before, I just don't feel like his confidence is at the same level it was when they first acquired him. He's just hesitating and, just doing more of the stuff that was already there before, like the bad stuff when it comes to like he'll create an advantage and then immediately like pick up the dribble or not take advantage of the space that he's created. Like he does that sometimes, and I think it's just part of his game. But it's become like it's under a microscope now because he's playing bad and he's kind of going hot and cold. I know that that's the reputation he has, but last year when he was here, man, like when they acquired him, he wasn't that hot and cold. Like I know he's streaky, he's always been a streaky player from three, but he wasn't having like so many games in a row of just looking like a negative out there. And there was like when they first acquired him, he was missing threes and stuff, but the confidence was there. You saw the vision of like, okay, this guy can get stuff going, can create his own shot. It was a pretty good passer for them. Like he just seems like he's trying to stay out of the way right now. And I don't know, like there's just no balance for him. The between off ball and on ball. He just seems like his role is up in the air. And like we talked about in other pods, I think eventually they're gonna have to probably move him to the bench. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just keep going with it. And maybe the move is just stagger him and Tyler more so that he could have more of his own units if you're not going to send him to the bench. And we've seen Spell like experiment with the units, but they have to do something about this Terry thing, right? Because between him and Bam, like those guys, like you need more out of them, right? And those are obviously two separate problems here. So I'm not trying to connect them. Besides them playing together a lot, of course. What I'm saying is like you got to find ways to get those two going. And I think the move with Terry is, get him in some of those units. And I agree. Like I thought Terry and Tyler were going to be similar in terms of production, in terms of role. And even though Tyler has done all the right things and all that, like he's clearly been the better player. Right. I don't feel like it's because Terry has tried to do too much. I feel like he's just not figured it out at all. Whereas Tyler is just like so smooth and fluid. And every game he's playing the best basketball of his career by far. And Terry,
it's just so strange because again, it is like the light bulb went on, but applying it then is another step. It's one thing for Tyler to say, okay, I get it. I got to play off the ball. I'm going to play a little bit more like Clay, but I'm not going to get rid of the other stuff that I do. This is how to make this team work. I can do that. We said that over and over. We kept saying the guy's a really good shooter. Lean into the shooting. And look, when I talked to him in the Bahamas and he talked about tightening up his form a little bit, we haven't gotten into a whole lot of that, what that actually has looked like. I think we probably should break it down more. I guess I'm used to it at this point, so I don't notice it. But Brady had picked it up, and then we had talked about it somewhat. That and he said to me, "Look, I have a different. I want to be able to get rid of the ball quicker, particularly in catch and shoot situations. It's one of the reasons he did it. But he's done it without any loss of efficiency and while increasing volume. And increasing volume and keeping your efficiency is a hard thing to do. And for a guy who was criticized consistently,
he's
improved it.
Way elevated efficiency.
Right. And we would hear about, wow, Tyler, he had 17 points, but it took him 17 shots. That's not happening this year. He's also had to take a couple shots at the end of shot clocks when the offense is completely broken down, that he had no chance. Like his efficiency on actual shots where he's been able to get set and take a good shot has been really, really good. And you're right, it hasn't really fit for Terry. And my view on this, and then we'll get into the long-term future as far as Terry goes, is they can't adjust for Terry. They can't adjust for Terry. Like, I don't want them taking anything off Tyler's plate right now to give it to Rozier at this point. Rozier has got to figure it out, okay, whether or not they put him on the bench or not, and it's just his ability to get to the basket, break things down a little bit. I don't want them changing a thing about what they're doing with Tyler. I that's the one thing on this team so far that I would not mess with.
The one thing I wanted to throw in here is I was looking up some of Terry's stats, and I've mentioned this on Discord in the past week or so, but and this is still held true. The one thing that you notice that's a big difference as far as the way he's getting his shots is that there has been a huge rise in the amount of shots that Terry has taken that are assisted, right? Or, the shots that he's made. And about 80% of his makes have been assisted on, which is like at first you look at it, it's like, yeah, look, he's playing, he's not ball hogging, right? Because it makes you like, oh, like these are all assisted buckets. But the problem is, he's not making the self-created ones, right? And that's kind of skewing the numbers a little bit. And it's like, wait, that's like one of the biggest traits that you traded him for. You traded a first-round pick for him and the $30 million expiring contract. So like that's one thing. The other thing is that the mid-range attempts for him are also way down, and so is the efficiency. Like it's not only that he's taking a lot less, but the ones that he has taken, he's not making. That was a part of his game that was there, and maybe that's thrown him off a little bit. I'm not sure. That's a part of it. I'm not going to blame it all on that, but like in the sense of, he's changing his game a little bit. And Tyler has just, he's the example of what happens when you change your game and polish it up. Like he's done everything right. And Terry, it's like I said, it's just completely gone the other way around, because when he's not going, man, like the defense is not there. We already know that, and they're playing him alongside Tyler. It's just easy to hunt. He gets killed on screens, and even though he has a long wingspan, like we've mentioned since they acquired him, the wingspan doesn't help if you're just getting flattened out on screens at the beginning of a play every time. Everybody's scrambling as a result. So I think there's still hope for Terry. I don't expect this to be this bad all season, and if it is, that's just a complete disaster of a trade, right? And again, me and you are both into it when they traded for him. But if he keeps up this level of play, Terry, it's a disaster of a trade.
I'm with you, and like you said, we both are in favor of it. So I'm not going to change the record on that. I really thought he would give them something that they don't have. We've talked about what that is, but honestly, at this point, it feels like what you need next to Tyler is a long wing. Honestly, it's a team that hasn't operated with the true point guard in many years. I mean, even Dragic was kind of a combo type guard, more of a score first. I know the definition has changed of the position, but for years, Chalmers was the guy, and Mario was, more of an off the ball player, off the ball and defend. I feel like at this point, maybe they don't need a true point guard. They need somebody to do more than what Lowry was doing. Okay, that was my argument, but like, especially at the price. But I do think that you could look at pairing him, again, with a wing type, like a Mikal Bridges type. Okay, somebody like that might fit next year. You're going to have playmaking in the front court as well. But so much of this, Alex, plays into something we're not going to get into a lot of depth on tonight, but it's sort of the long-term future when it comes to Jimmy, because I think we had kind of given up on the idea that Tyler was part of the long-term core. And right now, if I was to say to you, and again, many more episodes will be done on this, but if I was to say to you, who's more likely to be in a Heat uniform next season? You always say I ask you hard questions. This is the hardest. Who is more likely? We should put this on Discord. Who is more likely to be in a Heat uniform next season? Jimmy or Tyler? Bam's going to be here, I think. This is a very disturbing slump, I will say, because he's making a lot of us look bad. We thought he would make another jump coming off the Olympics. But it's a bad slump, and hopefully he comes out of it. Rozier, I don't think will be here next year.
Aggregate it.
I don't. Well, he's going to be in the last year of a contract that, unless he plays 70 games and makes the second round of the playoffs, is basically 22.3 million or something like that, which is somewhat affordable. I do think it's a movable contract in the last year of it, and my guess is that I don't think he's going to be here till the end of it. We can argue about Duncan. Duncan has another year after this one, and it's partial guaranteed. But I don't know that 2 years ago anybody would have said Tyler was going to outlast Jimmy in Miami, even with the age difference.
Not even a few months ago.
No, not even 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
right.
No, exactly. So, it's completely changed. It's turned on its head, and I don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy. That still feels super up in the air. But I think at this point, like, we already knew the Heat liked Tyler, and they were willing to move him for superstars and stuff. But outside of that, he's not going anywhere, man. He's playing the best ball of his career. He's upped his trade value as well. Not that they're looking to trade him, but if like they wanted to, if there was another star that became available in February or something, Herro is more valuable now than he was in the past. Jaquez and Jokic are more valuable now than they were when they were going for Dame. And again, speaking of trade value, like that's another reason why they should probably end up giving Terry's own bench unit if he's not going to be moved to the bench. Is like, if your plan is to eventually move off of him, like you're kind of saying there, you got to get him playing better, and they're just not using him as a point guard. Like his usage and his assist percentage are both super down. I feel like he's playing way outside of his comfort zone, and it's getting in the way. Like their defense is not great when the two of them are on together. and then you're not getting the exact offensive results you want. Even though their offensive rating's been better than other seasons, but it's not good enough where it's like, okay, you got to play these guys together. So no, I think Tyler is sticking around. Not sure about Jimmy, but like right now, like Terry is the guy that clearly stands out. It's like, okay, I don't know what's going on there. Like it's he went from a pretty productive player last season for them to somebody that's been a clear negative.
That's the thing. I mean, let me ask you this question. I don't want to get into a deep dive on this, but we can another day. Do you think Eric Spoelstra really wants a true point guard?
I guess it depends on
Kyle was so past his prime by the time. Well, Kyle was so past his prime by the time that he arrived, and he did give it to you a little bit, and particularly the 21-22 season when the other guys were hurt. But it just feels like I don't know. I don't get like Pat wanted a true point guard, right? Like he started with Magic. I mean, what do you? I mean, come on, right? So he started with Magic, and then in New York, he went out and got Derek Harper. He had Mark Jackson initially. He went out and got Derek Harper. He went out and got Doc Rivers. Like these are traditional floor general type point guards, right? Set you up. Derek Harper was a little later in his career at that point. So was Doc. So Derek was a little more off the ball. Then he comes to Miami. What does he go do? He goes against Tim, right? I mean, he goes against Timmy, and Timmy was third string in Golden State at the time, but he knew how to run a team. Okay, obviously he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't feel like Spo really. I mean, even Dragic was not. Like I said, he was not that. Like he could do it, but I mean, when we talk about Goran's best skills, it wasn't passing. It was his ability to get to spots on the floor, right? Go on these scoring blitzes. He was, he wasn't a great defender, but he was tough. I mean, there were a lot of things about Goran that we loved, but it was not like, okay, Goran's going to get you into offense and put everybody in the right place. Kyle was that, but he wasn't good enough for it to really work when he was here. Do you think that Spo really wants a true point?
I don't think it's like a priority for him. I think it's all about like how you get into your offense. What are your levers? Like, what are your main actions? And we've seen it play out so many times in the past, which is why it's a little bit surprising. We all expected this to be the starting lineup, right? I'm not going to blame everything on the starting lineup. I'm not trying to do that. But it is surprising that he's been so like willing to stick with it, right? With the Terry thing, because he's clearly not like a traditional point guard in by any means. And like we've been talking about, his role has just been kind of all over the place. So I don't know. It feels like he's in this like role purgatory right now. Terry is, and he's not a traditional point guard, right? And the Lowry thing, like Lowry is kind of the opposite of Terry. It's funny, like you mentioned it, because he is the traditional point guard, and he was for them very much an off-ball point guard who would set everybody up, get everybody in the right position, and then was a positive as a defender, despite not moving great. It's not he had lost some foot speed, and he was still a very positive help defender. Was a great switch defender for them in a pinch. Like they play almost opposite games. So it's funny that they both started here next to Tyler. And look, just to be fair, and I always bring this up when Lowry's mentioned because we do some hindsight stuff. The most successful they've been in the Jimmy era, a lot of it was with Kyle Lowry there. I'm not going to say it's because of him.
That's true.
But I do think that role. It's the opposite also of Terry in the sense of like he had a perfect role clarity. There was no question about what his role was going to be. Everybody wanted more from him, right? Everybody wanted him to score more, especially when, everybody was healthy. But there was no questions about what Kyle Lowry was there to do, how much usage he was going to get, and I think that part of that was like it was a very nice fit, a very clean fit in that way. And the Terry thing is more complicated. So I don't think Spo needs a traditional point guard. If he had one, I'm sure it would be nice, but I think that's why they can eventually, if they wanted to, I'm not sure they will, but I think because of that, they can eventually move Terry to the bench.
I think that may be what happens.
And when people say, a bigger playmaker for them, by the way, that's a huge part of that.
Well, and I think when people say, well, he kept Drew Smith, he's more of a traditional playmaker. He kept Drew Smith for defense. He kept Drew Smith for defense. Drew's not setting anybody up, but he kept Drew Smith because he's more of a defender that he could plug and play and give you some minutes there. But I just look, the game has changed, and the point guard position is a scorer's position now. So it's not like Rozier is totally out of that, but it just feels like unnecessary with Herro right now. And I just think we're at the point now where, and I'm going to cite one thing because our guy John Jablanca, who tends to check me on the Herro stuff from time to time, and he posted something on our Discord. You check this out on Off the Floor if you want to see John's takes. He posted a tweet for me almost to the day, Okay. Start to the 23-24 season. We'll close here. Dame Lillard, 7 games, 24, 4 and 5, 24, 4 and 5 on 40, 29 splits. Tyler Herro, 8 games, 23, 5 and 5 on 44, 38 splits. So really, we're at the same point of the season virtually. Tyler is basically averaging the same points, rebounds, assists as he did, but the splits are higher. And the way he's getting to those splits, the way the type of shots he's taking, this is sustainable.
Exactly.
It's sustainable. What he was doing before was not sustainable, and so everybody's making fun of me on off the floor right now. I'm not saying Tyler's going to be LeBron James. I'm please, okay, do not aggregate that. I'm simply
you set
saying
yourself up with that one.
I'm looking at the stats and I'm like, who's right under him? Oh my God, look at that. And look at that same shooting splits. Look at that. By the way, credit to LeBron for becoming that good a 3-point shooter, especially on volume like that. I mean, I used to watch him shoot threes and warm-ups and he's done a lot of work there. But I give credit to Tyler. Like, he has done the work. He's done what they asked him to do. And he deserves all the accolades right now because he has been by far the best player on this team. There's no question through the first 9 games of the season. It's time for Bam, and when he gets back, Jimmy to join the party. All right. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. And Terry, among others. Thanks to our sponsors. Again, Underdog on this one. Use code 5 FIBE. And also our friend EricRubenstein.com will be your friend if you have a car accident. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.